Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to episode 267 of the Falcoholic Live. I'm your host, Kevin Knight at Falcoholic Kevin, joined by a very special guest tonight. He is Eric Robinson at _Eric_Robinson, now at ESPN, formerly co-host of this program. And we were talking before the show, it's sort of a throwback show tonight. Eric, I think you took us through like the first 120 or so of these.
120, 150,
something like that. Yeah, first half, really. Yeah.
You and I got this thing off the ground, and then you took it to another level, man. You got 267 under your belt, and I hope to see another 267.
Yes.
And more.
I can't do the math for what that would be right at the top of my head, but it's more than 500. I can tell you that.
Well over 500 episodes.
It's well over 500. That's a good goal. Right. Yeah, because just saying 500, that would be too easy.
Right.
But yeah, guys, we got Eric here. We're gonna get Eric's updated thoughts on the Falcons, who are back to 500. We did defeat the New York Jets, which it counts as a win. So that's all that matters. And welcome to, of course, the chat. Welcome to George Costanza. Shout out to everyone joining us tonight. I know the Hawks are playing at home. Adnan had to shift his schedule because they apparently moved that game to Atlanta. So, so that's cool. Good for him. I know he's enjoying his other love, as well. It's healthy to have multiple interests. Don't overly obsess about just the Falcons. But we're gonna get into it, guys. We're gonna talk about some of the things the Falcons can do to sort of solidify their hold on the NFC South, what changes they can make. How can they take control of this division over the final five? Obviously, starting with this week against the Bucs. This is a big one, of course.
Yeah.
And we will get to all that real quick before we dive in. I want to bring you guys a quick word from tonight's sponsor, betonline.ag, folks. The holiday season is off and rolling with the NFL in full stride and the NBA and NHL hitting mid-season form. BetOnline is your number one destination for all your sports wagering info. They've got up-to-the-minute sports wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions. BetOnline is the top spot for everything pro and amateur sports, and not just the big four, guys. BetOnline has info available at your fingertips on both desktop and mobile access at any time for almost any sport that's played, from MMA to international soccer. I believe I saw some esports on there even. They've got it all. So what are you waiting for, guys? Check it out. Head to BetOnline today, and remember to use our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Eric. Well, first of all, I think we last had you on at the beginning of November. It was right before we got into the really deep darkness, because it was after the Titans loss. We were a little bit shaken by that game. But our faith had not been totally lost, and then now we've had the losing streak, and now we're back to a winning streak, and it's all sort of equalized itself to now we're 6-6. I think we were obviously hoping for better than this, but Falcons still in first place, have a 1-game lead on the rest of the division, and are 4-0 in the division at this point. 3-0. 3-0.
3-0. Yep.
Yeah, 3-0. Yes. Don't check my math. Yeah, but we're not doing math on tonight's show. That is one thing we don't do on this program. But just curious how you feel now that we've seen the bad, we've seen some good, maybe, in quotations for this last game. But how are you feeling about the team now heading into week 14?
Well, one thing I will say is I gave the team the benefit of the doubt going into the Jets game. I mean, it was already, we knew it was going to be an ugly game in terms of weather. It's going to be sloppy. Not to mention, me personally, I view that Jets defense as a Super Bowl caliber defense. And so I kind of sort of just threw everything out the window and said, hey, whatever success they find today, good on them, because it was going to be hard to come by. This Jets defense so far this season, especially at home at MetLife, they have been able to truly get at the quarterbacks. They forced 4 turnovers against Jalen Hurts, 3 more against Josh Allen. I think they picked off Patrick Mahomes a couple times. They had a pick 6 on Tua a couple weeks back. So this was the defense that's been able to truly get at the quarterbacks. And to see this team walk away from that game without a turnover, technically, is definitely a feather in the cap there for sure. Right now, they got a chance to equal last year's win total this Sunday against Tampa, which is huge, and get a game above 500. And not only that, but to really stretch that division lead even more going forward. And we'll see if they're able to get it done. They should be able to. We know how the Falcons have played in these type of games where they should be able to win, but we'll see. I guess that will tell you a lot about this team, whether or not they can actually go out there on Sunday and take care of business.
Yeah, that's been one of the biggest question marks about Arthur Smith's tenure, is I think over the first 2 seasons, they consistently lost these sort of must-win games in these situations. And, you know, the Cardinals game was sort of the most recent example. We saw the team kind of like hyping it up, like, oh, this is our Super Bowl and all this. And then, you know, they lose to the Cardinals. Now Kyler Murray's back, and clearly the Cardinals are not the same team they were over the first, 9 games or whatever with Kyler, but they're still not a very good team. Like, they're still a bottom 5 team in the NFL. So, they lose that, but then they do come out and they get a crucial win against the Saints and at home to stop the bleeding. And then they go on the road to MetLife to face one of the NFL's best defenses. Now, it's not like the Jets have a fearsome offense, but it's that defense has given pretty much every team fits, except the last couple games they played, it was showing some cracks. But it's a tough defense. It's one of the best defenses that typically looks worse because of how bad that offense is. So
it's one of those defenses where you're going to walk away from that game with a black eye, some bruises, a little bit of blood, a couple Band-Aids here and there. They're gonna beat you up, and they emerge victorious. So I'll take that.
They all count the same. Doesn't matter how ugly they look.
Right.
So
it all counts. Right.
Yeah, and they needed it bad to get back to 500 and to go into this divisional stretch here where they've got Tampa Bay this week, and then they got at Carolina after that. And these 2 games are absolutely critical because you win both these games, you're at 5-0 in the division, and you've basically guaranteed that if you tie the Saints if the Saints are a game behind you going into week 18, then you've clinched the division. So because the Saints at this point already have 2 divisional losses, they could not beat that record. So, these are 2 crucial games to make your life a lot easier, where you could potentially set up a situation where you don't have to win in New Orleans week 18. Now, obviously you'd like to win, you'd like to, but it would be better to not have to, because that's a terrible place to have to go win. Yeah.
It won't be for the division title. You will already have it sewn up by then. So,
so that would be nice. I don't know if we're going to get lucky enough for that, but again, New Orleans, far from a terrifying opponent themselves. They have a pretty easy schedule, similar to Atlanta's. The Bucs' schedule, I believe, is a little bit harder. But going up against this Buccaneers team, I mean, at this point, Tampa Bay obviously very vulnerable. They have not, basically the Falcons' loss kind of sent them into a death spiral, which was bizarre. But in this division, Tampa Bay's not out of it. Nobody's really out of it except for the Panthers at this stage. So, Tampa Bay could come in here and tie for the division lead if they were to defeat the Falcons on Sunday. So it's a crucial game. And curious how you sort of feel going into this, when the Falcons did, of course, win back in October in another really, really ugly game where really the Falcons should have blown them out, but they turned the ball over 3 times inside the 10. That was that particular game. So curious your thoughts on this rematch and how things are, you see things shaking out.
Well, looking back at that one, that game, they were able to put up 159 yards on the ground, and they ran the ball for 38 times. They absolutely could have put up 30 points on that defense in that game. They squandered 2 scoring attempts for sure that we know of for sure, and they did all that with Bijan only touching the ball once. So that should tell you that, hey, you know what? Without their best player, they were still able to beat this team, and they were still able to kind of sort of set the tone. I pretty much in that entire game, I know the fumbles were one thing that stood out, but Tampa was still not able to build off any of that in that particular game. So the Falcons were able to have those turnovers, but yet still endure those turnovers and still kind of sort of set the tone for the game. And they were able to shut the door on them late. So right now I'm going into this game now. And then you look back at that game, I believe Devin White wasn't necessarily 100% healthy. He was nursing that groin injury.
I believe he was questionable going in. Yeah.
Going in. Same thing here. Both he and both he and
Levante David, yeah.
David are both listed as questionable, as well as Jamel Dean going into this game as well. So this is a defense that is kind of hurting right now, and their run defense is definitely vulnerable for sure. They are one of the worst run defenses in the league. They've given up over 100 yards in each of the last 3 games. And I think this is the game where it may not take. I'll take it back. It's not one of the worst defenses in the league, but in the last 3 weeks they have looked a little vulnerable in the run. Yeah. But this is one of those games where I feel like this run attack can win this game for Atlanta. It's just a matter of sticking to it, being consistent with it, and understanding what is at stake and what is in front of you, which is something that, you know, you'll get that one game from Atlanta, and then you'll get that one game where it's like, hey, it's there. Let's just do this. Let's just stick to this game plan. And Arthur Smith goes a completely different direction. So,
yep.
Hopefully in this particular game here, given how everything played out early in the year, like I said, they ran for 160 yards without Bijan. That should tell you everything at this point. Not to mention, if you add on the additional injuries to their linebackers, they're probably 2 of their best defenders. This is a defense right now that's kind of sort of coming into it, and you can kind of sort of pick them apart with the run game.
Yeah, and yeah, you mentioned the injury report. It's quite long for both teams going into this one. You know, Levante David was back to full today, so it seems like he's on track. But you know, Devin White still out. Vita Vea out today as well with a toe injury. We have let's see who else was out. Yeah, you mentioned Jamel Dean. He's also out. And then, you know, KJ Britt, one of their reserve linebackers, he was limited. And then JJ Russell, another reserve linebacker, he was a DNP, but it was just a personal absence. So they're banged up, you know, on that defensive side of the ball. The Falcons also at this point, Drew Dahlman did not practice with an ankle injury. Nate Landman, we knew, was injured. He, you know, did not participate with a knee injury. Caleb McGarry still out with his knee injury, and then David Onyemata also out. So, you know, the good news, I think, maybe AJ Terrell was limited, so that means he is progressing through the protocol. If he is full on Thursday, that means he's more than likely going to be cleared. So that would be a big boost for him to be back. But yeah, I mean, 2 starting offensive linemen out. It does seem like maybe Lakeil London, we're going to get him back, which, especially if Onyemata's not going to play, absolutely critical that we get some defensive linemen back in the room. But both these teams really banged up, and that could be a deciding factor as well. That, you know, the Falcons they've lost some key players. Like if you look at, there's a metric out there that I saw that was like percentage of cap on IR, and the Falcons are among the league leaders in that, even though they don't have that many starters out, and it's because the guys they've lost are all really expensive, like Grady Jarrett. So, you know, they can't really afford to lose too much more on defense, particularly going against this Tampa team, which can be good offensively. It hasn't often been good. They seem to be less than the sum of their parts. It seems very familiar to the Falcons, but injuries definitely could be a great equalizer in this one. And then you hit on that as being a potential deciding factor. So we'll have to see how these guys progress. But yeah, I mean, they, particularly on the defensive line, you know, if they're out on Onyemata, we saw what this pass rush looked like without David Onyemata and without Grady Jarrett against the Cardinals, and even against that ramshackle offensive line, they could generate no pressure whatsoever. So, I'm a little nervous, certainly, if Onyemata really is in question for this game.
A little bit, yeah. But it's I to be honest with you, I will give Ryan Nielsen the benefit of the doubt in that aspect as well. He has shown the ability to adapt and adjust with injury so far this year. You know, we thought, you know, losing a guy like Troy Anderson earlier in the year was really going to cripple this defense, and he slid Nate Landman right in next to Caden Ellis, and they've been able to play some great football so far this season. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt there. I may not give it to a guy like Arthur Smith in this particular aspect, because again, when it comes to the play calling, when it comes to the offensive execution, it's all in his hands. And we've seen how that particular element can truly dictate whether or not the Falcons win or lose. So it kind of sort of just lies in his hands. Hopefully in this game, he looks at this and say, hey, you know what? I got a good thing going right now with this run game. I got all three of my running backs here healthy. They've been able to beat up on defenses. You know, they gave New Orleans some trouble a couple of weeks ago. The Jets, they kind of sort of wore them down a little bit in the second half with that run game. So let's keep the momentum going there. Hopefully he sticks to that blueprint, because I think that's what's going to help him out here and ultimately get them a win here.
Yeah, I mean it really has to be the offense this week, because and it's going to be, you know, if they're out Dahlman, that's a huge loss, obviously. Because, you know, with McGarry, they've seemed somehow they've been able to weather that loss. Storm Norton in both the games he's had to start, he's been okay. Like he's been solid. Yeah. So I mean, I have no complaints there. Obviously,
especially against the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, holding up like he did against the Jets, people are like, "Oh, he had like a 60 PFF grade." It's like, well, against the Jets, that's pretty good. That's like a great grade against the Jets. Good. You know,
there's some long-term starters that had 60s against the Jets. Okay, so I'll take that.
Yeah, so it's, you know, I feel okay with that, but yeah, you know, Dahlman, we'll see. You know, the Falcons are pretty cautious with their injuries on Wednesday. Typically, if guys have anything significant, they'll rest them. But, you know, Thursday and Friday will tell the story. But, you know, I'm sure these guys are fighting to get back out there. But like you said, they're going to be down some guys on defense. We're not sure exactly which ones, but they have to figure out a way to get it done on offense, because that's been the killer. Like the defense has played well enough pretty much every single week for this team to win, which is a new experience for us as Falcons fans to have that happen. Right. And now the offense is not getting it done. And that's kind of the key, you know, thing I'm harping on in this episode, is that the Falcons, they got to fix their offensive issues if they're going to win this division. If they're going to get to the playoffs, they can't just keep relying on the defense to bail them out over and over again. And, you know, you mentioned the run game, and it's a big part of it. They need to figure out how to get that going more consistently.
And this may be the game to do so. Again, as I mentioned, you know, Bijan only had one touch in that game, and that came on the very last drive, and it went for 3 yards. So this team has tape on Bijan, yes, but they have not defended his ability. They have not defended his speed. They have not defended his versatility. They have not defended his big play threat, which, again, when you can watch it on tape all you want, but until you see it up close and personal and witness it, it's a different aspect. So that may be the deciding factor in this game. The fact that such a weapon that he is, and Tampa's going into this game. You know, normally when you see your divisional opponent the second time around, they know your offense. We know what that guy is. We know who that guy. They don't know exactly what Bijan is or who Bijan is. They don't know because they haven't defended that. So again, that could be the determining factor in the long run in this one.
Yeah, and you know, the run game, the Falcons just have to. If they can't run the ball, the whole thing falls apart. And know, last year it was a little bit more understandable, but this year it's frustrating to see that they just. And in the Jets game, it just didn't seem like they ever really committed to doing it, which was bizarre, because we both know, like, do we really want to see them throw against, you know, Sauce and DJ Reed and all this? And like, you know, we did see that great throw to Michael Pruitt. That was a perfect pass. That was a great play. And that's the thing with Ritter, is like he'll throw that and then he'll throw a duck that gets picked off. So it's like, you know, you don't want to put too much on Ritter's plate at this stage, because I think mentally the decision making is not all there. We know that, but
I think the issue in that game was the fact that early on he tried to execute a lot of outside zone runs, and it was obvious it's not going to work against this defense. This is a fast-flowing defense. You got 2 stud middle linebackers in CJ Mosley and Quincy Williams that can go from sideline to sideline. You got a nose tackle in Quentin Williams that can go up and down the defensive line. So those cutback lanes for Bijan were not there in that game, but he did find a formula with just running it straight ahead with Tyler Algier, and that's why you saw him get 4, 5, 6 yards of carry in that one. So it's a matter of him adjusting to what is in front of him. And honestly, early on in that Jets game, I was starting to feel a little down, because I'm like, he's going to stick to this outside zone run, and it's not. He tried to run it in the end zone, and it cost it and gave up a safety. Why you're running
halfback stretch in the end zone
all game, and why are you calling this in the end zone? I don't know. But it's one of those things where it's like, man, he's got to get out of his own way, man, as a play caller. He really has. He's overthinking this thing.
Exactly. And it's like, if we as fans know these things, it's like, oh, I've watched this Jets defense. I know that they're vulnerable to giving up rushing yardage. That on a yards per carry basis, they're not that bad, right? They're like 19th, but they can get worn down, which is why they're 31st in overall rushing yards allowed. They hold the Falcons to 90 because the Falcons refuse to target their weaknesses, which is Quinnen Williams is awesome, but whoever's lined up next to him on the interior is a problem because they have no more depth there. They've lost out Woods, their nose tackle. They don't have a good run defender on the inside, and the linebackers, they're really fast, they're really good, but they're vulnerable to getting run through, right? The missed tackles is like the one problem with the Jets defense. And instead we're trying to string them out and run around, and it didn't work, and we lost a lot of rushing yardage. We lost a lot of yardage. Like the run game statistically looked worse than it was because of so many lost yards on those outside zone plays. And, I don't understand why that was the game plan, because we all know that the Jets match up really well with outside zone. Like they can stop it. They're capable of doing it. The interior stuff, that's where you should target, because their edge rushers are great. Their interior guys, not named Quinnen Williams, are less great. So run it right at those guys. And instead, we didn't do that. So, and that just speaks to, I think, the frustration that a lot of fans feel around the play calling, which is like, if we know these things, we see these weaknesses just from an outside perspective. Why isn't the Falcons coaching staff seeing these obvious things and doing it? And it's frustrating. I understand that. So,
and it's the same formula they need to follow this week. You go back to game one, a lot of their success in the run game came in the interior with Algier and Cordero Patterson. They were able at times throughout the game to get 6, 7, 8 yards a pop. And they were able to wear down that defense. And the reason why the Jets defense is able to get worn down over games is not because they're a vulnerable defense per se, it's because their offense is so anemic that they see so much time on the field that eventually, they're going to wear down. You're playing 35 minutes, 40 minutes a game. You're going to give up some yardage late, regardless how good you are. So hopefully he will follow that same blueprint as game one, because in game one, that Tampa defense, they had their hands on their hips in the second quarter, and they were getting popped. I remember Antoine Winfield caught a nice little shoulder from Cordero in the second quarter, right before that first Ritter fumble. So follow that formula, man, and it may lead to success again this week.
Yeah. And you mentioned like the Tampa Bay defense against the run, still good, not like heyday of Tampa Bay, where they were the number one run defense, but
top 10,
they're 3.9 yards per carry, just a hair below the Falcons. They're 8th, in terms of total yardage. They're, I think, also 10th. So this is a good run defense. This is not a run defense. Obviously if Vita Vea is out, that hurts them a lot. So we'll have to monitor that. But against the run, they are pretty good. So the Falcons aren't going to be able to just roll them over like they would be able to do to some teams. This may be a game where they do say, especially if Jamel Dean's out, let's see if we can test this team through the air. I think that, when Ritter had one of his best games passing against this Tampa Bay defense, I think that was one of his rare mistake-free games, throwing the ball. I mean, obviously the fumbles were awful. I mean, there was brutal, but it's like if it's not one thing, it's another with Ritter. But up and down, like the moving of the ball was going quite well. So maybe they found something that worked there. But the Tampa Bay defense against the pass, 28th in passing yardage allowed, and I believe almost at the 28th in net yards per attempt as well. So very vulnerable defense against the pass. It may be that they do need to lean a little bit more on that, and then they sort of salt the game away with the run. But I mean, I don't care how you get it done. We're not the offensive coordinator. We're not the coaching staff. It's not our job to figure out how to do this, but they got to figure out some way to make it work, because this is a crucial game, for the standings. And if you lose this game, the Bucs will tie it up with you, and they'll have a chance to take over the division. And your grip on the division gets a lot weaker, where if you win this game, you sort of take a really strong grip, where it's like, okay, you're 4-0 the division. The Saints basically have to win out. And that's not out of the question for the Saints, right? I mean, they play Carolina, they play the Giants. Maybe they have to go to Los Angeles to play the Rams. That's probably the toughest game left on their schedule. They have to go to Tampa Bay. And then we get to play them in week 18. But yeah, 4 of the Saints' last 6 games or whatever are in New Orleans. So they and that it's a different team in New Orleans. It really is. Like, they play so much better when they're in New Orleans. So
I go back to a couple of weeks ago. Tampa was on the road in Indy, and they gave up 155 yards on the ground. They almost gave up 100 yards to Jonathan Taylor alone. And they the Colts end up emerging victorious in that particular game. So that game, along with giving up 159 to the Falcons early in the year, they also gave up over 200 yards to the Eagles earlier in the season in September as well. So they've had a few games where it's like, man, the run defense is pretty leaky here, and it's cost them victories. They, ironically, in those 3 games, they lost all 3. So I'm looking at it and saying, yeah, they're top 10. They're very solid in terms of yards per carry, but I feel like they can be had. Can be had. Hell, even Carolina was able to put up 133 yards, and we know
Chuba,
they cannot run the football to save their life.
Chuba Hubbard going off. He had 2 touchdowns.
They were able to have some type of success this past week. So that's why I'm feeling a little optimistic about the run game going forward.
Exactly. Especially if the linebacker, it seems like Levante David will be back, but no Devin White, probably. Vita Vea, if he's out, obviously that's huge. So those 2 guys, that would be massive in terms of the Falcons' ability to run the ball successfully against them. But yeah, I mean, it's just such a key game for this team that they have to figure out a way to get that done, because they do win this game against Tampa. They're set up well. Then they go to Carolina in a game that they should be expected to win. And I know people mentioned it. Yes, like, it is at home, so that helps. Like, the Falcons are at home in this game. They already got the road win. And they seem to, other than Mike Evans just getting his every time he plays the Falcons, he's going to have a touchdown in this game, guys. You can write that down. But if they can just limit the damage and actually get Baker Mayfield on the ground a little bit more, then they should be okay. We'll see. Obviously, the injuries on defense too for the Falcons could make that a little bit harder. But it's a crucial one. This is a big game. Just an really important one. And if you win this game, the Bucs are probably done, because their schedule, unlike New Orleans, is pretty tough. They have to go to Green Bay after this, which Green Bay all of a sudden looking pretty damn good. And then they have to play Jacksonville. Now, maybe that's not as dangerous as it used to be, but that defense is still pretty good. And then they have to play New Orleans. So no matter what, the Falcons win that week. So these New Orleans and Tampa got to play. So somebody's taking an L, and whoever loses that game might be out. So
or maybe they tie and make it even easier.
There you go. And then they get Carolina to close out. So the Falcons, if they sweep them, at this point, it's probably going to be pretty much over for the Bucs. But the Bucs also are sitting at, I think, they're at a 2-1 divisional record. So if they win this game, they'll tie the Falcons divisional record. So it a lot hinges on this one. It's a crucial game.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
a lot is on the line in this one.
Yeah, so they got to figure out a way to get it done. I mean, this is one of those late meaningful December games that we really haven't seen a lot of for this team. And it's a chance to get to a winning record and all those things. And so, I mean, hey, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about this. I feel very nervous.
I'm not nervous. I'll admit I was a little more nervous going into the Jets game than I am.
Yeah,
about this one.
Felt very uncomfortable with that one. Yeah,
because I felt that Jets defense was capable of winning the damn game on their own. In terms of this one, they're all at home. They have a little bit of momentum here. It's just capitalizing. That's what it is. You understand the opportunity that is in front of you, and the thing is, they've had games like this already this season. Like I look back at that Tennessee game. That is an ugly loss. Like they had no business losing that game. They had no business losing to Minnesota. They had no business losing to Arizona. Like it's those games that has tripped the Falcons up in recent history, where it's like you need to go out and handle business. The opponent in front of you, you're better than.
Yeah. So
just do what good teams do this time of year, and they win these type of games this time of year.
Yep.
So,
And this is an opportunity for them to do that, an opportunity for them to actually prove themselves as a team that is going to play meaningful football in December, and probably get waxed in the first round of the playoffs. We're not we have no delusions of grandeur here, but
I'm not too confident about that one. Yeah,
if they could just get a winning record and go into the playoffs with a winning record and not embarrass this division, be like another 8-9 division champion. Like if we could just get a winning record and go into the playoffs, and even if they get waxed, it would at least be a little bit more respect on this division's name at the end of the day. But it's not going to be easy. I mean, obviously the schedule is not that daunting, right? They play Tampa Bay at home, then they go to Carolina, and if they win those two games, they're probably, I mean, they're obviously in the driver's seat for the division at that point. We talked about it. They're 5-0 in the division. And they play Indianapolis, at Chicago, at New Orleans, and Indianapolis is probably the toughest game left at this point. Somehow.
It's a tricky one, man. That is a tricky one. I'll be honest with you.
They might not win that one. I mean, at least it's at home.
I'm nervous.
At least it's at home. Yeah. No, that's a tough one. I mean, that's not, Indianapolis is not a pushover. They're 7-5. They're playing good football, even though they're not a flashy team, but they're just really solid. I think they're just a better version of the Falcons, basically.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. So that game makes me nervous, but like at Chicago, you never really know how that goes. The Bears, I feel like, look like either the worst team or like really spicy every week. So I don't know what to think about that. Yeah. And then at New Orleans, which hopefully you don't have to win that game, because at New Orleans, week 18, if they're fighting for a playoff spot, that's going to be a tough game to win. It just will be. So,
it may be, but I definitely wouldn't mind put them out there misery.
I mean, there's always that. Yeah. That would be nice. If they could do that, then perfect. That'd be great. Yes. If just only that though. Nothing, I don't want the pain of them sending us home at that point, but
right.
Yeah. But yeah, so we got a ways to go before we actually get to this playoff berth. But I mean, obviously the Falcons control their own destiny. If they were to win out, then they coast into the playoffs with no issues whatsoever. And I mean, at that point they'd be 12-6. I mean, that would be better than anyone's wildest dreams. So, I mean, we were predicting 10-7. So
yeah, I'm gonna stick with 10-7 on that one.
Yeah, no, I think I'm down to 9-8 at this point. But
are you down to 9-8? Okay.
Yeah, they lost too many of those games in the middle. Yeah.
Just for the sake of staying true to my prediction, I'll stick with 10-7, even though I think it's likely going to be 9-8, somewhere in that neighborhood. So we'll see. Hopefully, that 7th loss does not come this week.
Yes, however, that would be good. They need to save those losses for later. Yeah.
At the very least, lock up the division over the next 2 weeks.
Yeah. That would go a long way. That would go a long way.
That would go a long way. Yes.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's get to a couple donations here before we continue on. We got George Costanza with the $2. What's up, George? Says, no matter what we have to endure as a Falcons fan, we can at least sleep well at night knowing that we don't have David Tepper as our owner. What a dumpster fire that whole organization is, and you hate to see it. Smirks menacingly. Man.
Yeah. That is very surprising seeing what is going on over there in Carolina.
It's wild, man.
I think we knew that they were going to be a bad team, but I don't think we expected them to be the worst team in the league. And that is exactly what they are. And it's not going to get any better, especially when you don't have a first-round pick. You don't have a first-round pick. You don't have much of an O-line. You don't have much of many threats, if any, at the receiving core. You possibly could lose your top defender this offseason in free agency. Your secondary looks abysmal. There's nothing to really hang your hat on in Carolina, man. I mean, it's just it's unfortunate what they're going through. Now, I will say this: if we lose to Carolina next week, that's easily the worst loss.
Yeah,
no question about it.
Yeah, no, can't do that. They got to find a way to beat the Panthers at least. At least we got to sweep the Panthers. But
come on, man.
Yeah, no, I mean it's been fun to see them potentially sweep they have the potential to sweep every team in the division. I can't remember the last time that happened. They're not going to sweep all of them. I definitely think they're probably going to lose one of these games, but it's funny that they have this opportunity now. It would just be the ultimate irony. Yeah.
This team, given everything that they've gone through during the Arthur Smith era, it's funny how this team has an opportunity to sweep the division. How would that? Man,
this one.
You know what? Team, damn the fact that they sweep and go into the playoffs and get rocked by the Cowboys. They rock. They rule the division. They own the division. I'm definitely going to take that into the offseason, dude.
Yeah. I mean, we can enjoy that no matter what. And it's funny because at this point, if they do just win the division games, they probably make the playoffs.
Absolutely.
Like they probably win the division outright at that point because they'll be 9-8 and they'll give losses to Tampa Bay and to New Orleans. So, given that they'll win the tiebreakers at that point, that's probably enough. So it's like, they could lose the 2 non-division games. It's okay. So ultimately we keep coming back to the most important 2 games left on the schedule at this point are probably these next 2. And then the New Orleans game is probably, the next one after that. But they're all important. I mean, when you're 6-6 in December, they're kind of all important to some extent.
They're all
but
important.
They gotta figure out a way to get it done. But let me get to some more of our donations here. We got Jason Gaines. What's up, Jason, with the $2? He says, Eric, I think it would be funny. You should pull a Stephen A. Smith, and every time you sign off, you should say, thanks for watching me on YouTube. For more live sports and premium content, make sure you're subscribing to ESPN Plus. Yeah, I mean, I've given an opportunity to plug at the end. I don't know that you've actually ever plugged ESPN Plus, but...
No, I'm not going to do that.
It's too tacky. It's too corny.
It is. I'm away from work. I'm off the clock. Let it be. I'm good.
Yeah, he's a man of the people at this point. Man of the people, not a man of the man of the suits. He's not there for the shadowy, ESPN figures in the back. Yeah.
No, so. I'm not.
Unless you guys are watching, in which case, you're very handsome. Yeah. But we got George Costanza again with the $2. Thanks, George. He says the best way to fix our secondary issues is to invest in the pass rush. When quarterbacks get to sit in the pocket for 7 seconds, even Deion Sanders couldn't cover these guys for that long.
Hey,
I would love to the sexy pick of a quarterback, but we could consider Swift out of UT as well. I mean, it kind of depends on what they do with like Jeff Okudah and stuff like that. Do they bring him back? It seems like they're probably going to prioritize AJ Terrell, and then they should. But, I'm curious really about what they do in the secondary because we saw Clark Phillips play really well outside, and that was in AJ Terrell's spot even. So, if they have a lot of confidence in Phillips, that could be, let's let Okudah walk because we don't want to pay. Okudah's going to probably get a decent contract at this point. We'll see how he finishes the season, but they're going to have some tough decisions to make in the secondary, but they're going to have to invest in the pass rush. That's non-negotiable. So.
Let's take a little time out of the show, Kevin. Let's give some flowers to Jerry Gray and Steve Jackson.
Yeah.
Those guys have come into this building and they have revamped this secondary and they have molded this secondary to be one that you can actually hang your hat on, man. Like this, Jesse Bates is playing like an all-pro. Clark Phillips. What I saw from Clark Phillips this past week, you and I were always impressed with Clark Phillips. Yeah. But seeing what we saw from him in run defense, like, man, I'll take that every day of the week for a kid that's 5'9". I swear, man, I wish if he was 6'2", Kevin. Oh, God.
He would have been a top 10 pick if he was 6'2".
Oh, good Lord. If he was 6'1", 6'2", man. Jesus, he'll be a hell of a prospect. But, what they're getting on him, they have a good problem now because D. Alford has played very well all year at the slot corner position, at the nickel spot. And Clark Phillips, you felt like was going to be a guy that they were going to have, they were going to insert at some point throughout the season as well. But, the emergence of D. Alford has given them an opportunity to say, hey, you know what, we got 2 guys here that we don't know how to give them playing time at this point. So they have a good problem on their hands right now. But what they do in the draft going forward, it's tough.
It's definitely edge. It's definitely gonna be edge.
It may be a quarterback. Honestly.
In the first round, it's gonna be a quarterback. Yeah.
I really want to put my money on that. I'm very positive when I say, and very sure when I say that there's going to be a new starting quarterback in 2024. I just don't know if it's going to be in the mode of a young veteran like Justin Fields, if it's going to be a true veteran like Kirk Cousins, maybe, or if it's going to be a first round pick like Jaden Daniels or something like that. I don't know, but I just know there's going to be a new starting quarterback in 2024.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point Arthur Smith has to try to paint it that it's, this is very meta, but I mean, at this point I think Arthur Smith has to kind of try to paint Desmond Ridder as the problem, or else people are going to lose faith entirely. Like, I think he has to kind of sell us on, like, Desmond Ridder couldn't run my offense. We need to get a better quarterback in here, and that's what we're missing. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that the scheme is holding the offense back to a great extent.
I agree with you, because I think at this point, half the room is looking at Ridder and the other half of the room is looking at Arthur. So I agree with you there. He's still got to get the people on the side for sure.
Yeah. So, I'm not opposed to getting another quarterback one way or the other, but I do wonder what happens when the new quarterback looks the same as this. The offense doesn't change at all with the new quarterback. Then we might find who the true problem is with this offense. But we just have to hope for the best. We have to hope that they can bring in our passing game coordinator and get this thing fixed. Because at this point, it seems very unlikely that there's going to be any changes made. So
that's the direction I was just getting ready to say that. You took the words right out of my mouth. Hopefully, even if they do whatever quarterback they bring in, I also hope that they make an additional hire on the offensive staff, and it has to be a passing coordinator. I think if you bring in a guy that's able to take that particular aspect off of Arthur Smith and say, hey, I got the passing game, you run the football, that's your bread and butter, let's mesh this together and put this thing together going forward, then I think you'll definitely start to see the dividends being paid off then. But I really do feel that is very much imperative this offseason, along with getting a quarterback, to bring in another guy in that room to help out these passing game concepts, because he hasn't shown a lot to me over the last 2.5 years or whatever to say, we have something there.
Yeah, no. And, I think a lot of people would then be like, well, why is he the head coach exactly if we can't trust him to create an offense? Well, that's a great question, but I don't know. We're not the ones you have to convince. Okay, you got to convince Arthur Blank to make a change.
There's a number of head coaches around the league that are not in that. They're not capable of doing such, and it's okay if that's not your thing. That's not your thing. It's fine. You don't have, even just because you're an offensive minded head coach, don't mean you have to call the offense every all the time. That's just it's understandable. I see people are looking at other teams. You're looking at San Francisco, for example. You're looking at Mike McDaniel there in Miami. You're looking at some of these teams and you're saying, hey, this offensive minded head coach is doing the thing. But hey, you know what? While Andy Reid was successful in Kansas City, we know how essential Eric Bieniemy was. Yeah. Regardless of what title he had, he was still an important piece to that staff. Even though Andy was calling the plays, Eric Bieniemy had a very important role there. So it's okay if he can still be the play caller. I don't care if he's calling plays. I just feel the passing element needs to be in the hands of someone else and not Arthur Smith. That's just
No, I agree as well. I mean, I think that we have to see some kind of changes, but will he do it? That's the big question. Yeah,
we're on the same page.
Yeah, as
far as which guy we want to bring in.
I mean, what who are you? Who do you want? I mean, I might be, but
Pep Hamilton.
I mean, that would be great. Let's do it.
Yeah.
I mean, if he's willing to come here, certainly.
That's the name that keeps coming up for me.
Yeah, I would love that.
He's on the NFL Network right now, just chilling.
Yeah, I mean, that would be cool. That would be great. I'd be interested in that for sure. And I mean, they need that quarterback coach as well. I mean, I think people didn't realize how big of a loss Charles London was going to be when he ended up going for a lateral job, which also bizarre why they allowed that, but whatever.
Yeah.
But you know, it's an interesting situation, and I hope they can figure it out, because that's the only way we're going to see meaningful change and improvement with this team, is if they could get this offense fixed up.
Yep.
But we got Jason Gaines with one more donation here with the $2. Thanks again, Jason. He says the Falcons now have a 3-game winning streak against the Jets. That's nice. Always like to have those streaks going in a positive direction. Usually it's the other way for the Falcons against these teams.
Remember when the Jets won the Super Bowl last offseason? Man.
Yep.
Good time. Man.
Good times. Whew. Good times.
I'm sure the fans remember that. The Jets fans remember that.
Yeah. But but he says, unlike the 2017 win over the Jets, at least Sunday's win didn't end in a 10-second runoff. Let's sweep the Bucs, and also we won't have to listen to Jonathan Vilma this week since it's a CBS broadcast for Falcons Bucs. Yeah, well, small miracles, right?
It's a CBS game for Falcons Bucs.
Is it? I think at one point it was. It might have been changed, but
oh boy, that's not.
Yeah,
good.
Yeah.
I much want to listen.
Right.
I think they're undefeated with Vilma this year, aren't they?
Honestly, they might be. Yeah, it's his vitriol fuels them. Yeah.
I know Vilma was there for the Green Bay game.
Yep.
I believe I don't think he was there for the season opener. I know he called the Green Bay game. So I think they are undefeated with Vilma this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because New Orleans Jets. Yeah, so all that stuff. Yeah, no, I mean, maybe he's the good luck charm. Maybe we do need Vilma this week.
Maybe.
We need his vitriol just fuels.
Anything for CBS. We do not play good with CBS.
Yeah, we don't vibe. The last wasn't CBS calling that Tennessee game? And man, that was.
They called the Arizona game.
Yeah,
and they called the Washington game as well.
Yeah, those were some rough ones. Those were not great. Not great broadcasts there.
And then that one was with Matt in attendance.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Shout out to the legend. Yeah. Shout out to the legend. Yeah.
Jesus. Right.
We just let them. They could just take shots at them all game because of us. Way to go, Falcons.
Interception game in front of that Falcons legend in the booth.
Yep.
I tell you,
how could you do that? That's just
Jesus.
How could you? Yeah. Just unprofessional, honestly. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, at this point, the Falcons, they're back to 6-6. They're in the driver's seat here. What are you feeling for rest of season? Do you think they're going to pull this thing off? Do you feel good about it, or are you very much like feeling in danger with this team at this point of the season?
I mean, if you would have asked me that 2 weeks ago, I would have said, dude, I'm not sure, man. I don't know. Right now, they got a little bit of momentum. They got a 2-game winning streak. Hopefully, they can take it to 3. I think they have an opportunity here to truly separate themselves for the rest of the NFC South. I think they can do it, honestly. Now, I don't know if it's going to equate to the 10-7 record that I predicted at the beginning of the season, but I do think they're going to win the division. I do think they're going to go into the playoffs with a winning record. I don't think this team is going to go 8-9 and walk into the playoffs. But I do think they're going to be able to win the division comfortably and have a winning record and have something to build on for 2024, because they desperately need it for sure.
Yeah. I mean, we need it as much as they do. Just some kind of positivity here, not going into another off season with nothing but hope. Just, and they need to start getting that playoff experience. I mean, all the playoff guys from that 2017 team are almost gone at this point, and there's just not. It's a young team with not a lot of experience in the playoffs. So even if you're going to just go get your asses kicked, getting used to that atmosphere is significant too. So
there is a little experience on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah. We got Calais, obviously. We got Onyemata. We got
Jesse back there as well. Jesse in the Super Bowl, made big plays in the Super Bowl. So we have a little experience, at least on the defensive side of the ball, which is the better unit of the two. So hey, that might be a benefit for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, that you're absolutely right. We definitely have more of that veteran presence there. Just the experience, though, like they just need to get used to winning football, even if it's not pretty, even if it's ugly, even if it's not great. They just need to get that winning record and get into the playoffs and get used to what that feels like, and It'll be for us. It'll be like we're gonna go into that playoff game with no expectations. This is not gonna be like a tense playoff game. We're probably gonna be like 6 beers deep by the fourth quarter, probably getting our asses kicked, but we're not really gonna care.
We already won our playoff game to get into the playoffs, so we're fine. Whatever,
which is sad, but that's where we are at this point. Yeah, that's just kind of
don't get embarrassed.
Yeah,
you're likely going to just don't lose 40-0. That's
yeah. If you could keep it within 2 scores, just hold our attention for 4 quarters.
We'll take that. We'll take that. Yeah,
just keep it, within 10 points. Keep it like a single-digit loss. Is that too much to ask? Maybe, honestly, but we'll see. This team plays everybody close. Yeah, it's fine.
If that single-digit loss was to Dallas or Philly, hell yeah, I'll take that. Yeah. Granted, seeing how much talent those 2 teams have, I'll take that any day, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I think we've covered it well, Eric. A lot of takes tonight. Appreciate your time, insight into this frustrating team that we all know and love, the Atlanta Falcons. Yeah. But guys, he is Eric Robinson. He's at _Eric_Robinson, currently at ESPN. And this is your opportunity to plug, ESPN Plus, whatever.
I'm not plugging ESPN. I will not plug ESPN on a Falcoholic. I will not do that, man. I can't do that. ESPN has enough plugging and enough.
Yeah, they don't need our help. Yeah,
they don't need another plug here. No, they're fine.
Mm-hmm.
They're fine.
Yes, they're fine. Yeah, they're just fine. They don't need our help.
Are we doing score predictions?
Yeah, go for it. What you got?
I'll take of course the Falcons here. 24-14.
Yeah. Wow, so 10-point win. Yeah.
Yeah. I think they get a comfortable win here. I think that defense creates a couple of turnovers late, something that they've been able to do in recent games. I think eventually it may not start off great, but I think that run game truly gets into a second gear in that second half, and I think that run game kind of sort of carries them to victory.
Yeah, no, I could see that happening for sure. Yeah, I mean that would not surprise me. That I would like that. It would be nice to get a 10-point win against the Bucs, and we'll see how the injuries shake out too, because that does matter as well. But yeah, I think I would go like 23-17 or something like that. Something where we're probably still sweating at the end, but the Falcons win a little bit more convincingly than last time, but probably also make some stupid mistakes. But hopefully we can clinch it with I know Nico says Koo clinches it. Or maybe we can ice it away with the running game, salt it away, whatever you want to say. That'd be nice too. So let's see it. Yeah.
Let's give Koo a break.
Yeah.
You won enough game for us this year.
He needs to kick his more than 1.5 field goals for my prize picks, and after then he can take a break. Yeah.
Kicks early on, but I don't. We don't need Koo to win it this time. Let's give Koo a break. He's already put the cape on for us enough this year. So.
Yeah, you gotta give that leg a rest. Give that leg a rest. We need it. We need it for the playoff run, right? So. Right. But yeah, no, I do think they'll find a way to win it. It's at home. They've tended to play their best ball at home, and they really outclassed the Bucs in that first matchup on the road, and they made it just so many mistakes. They still end up winning that game because the Bucs are just not very good.
They were definitely the more physical team, and I don't think we expected that in that first matchup. I don't think we went into that game thinking like, hey, they can really punch these guys in the mouth, but they did on both sides of the ball. Granted, the fumbles are the fumbles, but you take away that run game was able to swing and swing hard in that game, and they were able to make Baker Mayfield uncomfortable all game. So let's hope they're able to duplicate that.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. We got one more donation from Corey Carter. What's up, Corey? He says, we did run the ball successfully in that first matchup, so I bet we'll throw a lot more in this one because the Bucs won't be expecting it. Hashtag Arthur Smith logic. Well, there you go. Yeah.
Sounds like it.
Well, it's funny because the Bucs are actually very vulnerable against the pass, so that would actually be logical. So instead we're probably just going to only run the ball into into an inexplicably really good Bucs run defense, despite losing Vita Vea, and then we should have passed the ball more, something like that. But yeah, oof.
Yeah, let's not think of that. I mean, I really let's stick to what's working. All right, the
Yes.
run game is working right now. Let's stick to that.
Let's just get it done. I don't care how ugly it is. Again,
Right.
just get it done.
Get it
you know,
done.
these you got to win these division games. That's really it. You got to find a way to
Absolutely.
get these dubs and get at it. Well, don't get out of there. You know, go home and bring home the dub. Bring home the dub.
Yeah,
that's what we'll
absolutely.
go with. But guys, I'm Kevin Knight at Falcoholic. Kevin, thanks so much for hanging out with us here on this Wednesday night. I know you could be watching the Hawks. I don't know how that's going. Maybe that's why people are here instead. But for those of you joining us live during the Hawks game, thank you. We will, of course, be back with a game preview for you guys on Friday, covering this Bucs game and a little bit more matchup detail. And then, of course, we'll be back on Sunday for that post-game show. Hopefully another big dub this week. And guys, yeah, thank you so much. Tonight's show is, of course, brought to you by BetOnline. Please like, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. If you're on your podcast platforms, leave us that 5-star review. If you're looking to support the show, you can join up with a channel membership now. Those are live. If you're on YouTube, if you're more of a podcast listener, check out the Patreon, patreon.com/Falcoholic Live for those exclusive perks, early access, all that good stuff. Appreciate everyone who's already signed up and supporting there. Thank you guys. And yeah, we'll be back soon with more Falcons content. Hopefully things stay positive. Hopefully we crush it and get this team to the playoffs, because it's been too long. It's been way too long.
It's been 84 years.
Yes, exactly. This team is that name. It's not. I feel like there's a few teams that actually it has been 84 years for the playoffs, but we're not quite there. But it feels like it. Certainly,
it feels like
it. Yeah. So please, Falcons, let's not Falcon it up this one time.
Right.
You know, we don't ask for a lot, but
we don't. We don't.
I feel like we don't ask for a lot, but even then, we still don't get it. So, you know, we'll see if it changes this week. But guys, thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time. Have a great night, folks.